That means we're live. No talking smack about me. Okay. So,
Good morning, Scott. We got Scott Owen. I haven't seen him.
hey, Scott Owens. Nice to see you, bud. All right. So we're going to give it just a little bit more time here. Let some more people join in. We've got, starting to get some folks online. We'll give it about another minute and then we'll get going. For those of you that have joined, since we're calling you out, you are all muted. And so for question and so on, if you would kindly ask your questions through the chat. So the Q&A will go through the chat on the bottom of your screen. You can click on that icon down there and you'll see all of our comments going through. So if you have any questions, please make sure that you are putting those down there. Okay. And so, all right. So Mike, do you want to go ahead and kick it off?
I'm happy to. Thanks everyone for joining. This is Mike Allen. I am currently serving as Wendy's president-elect. Thanks for joining. This could not be possible without the generous support from our sponsors. Our gold sponsors include Moss Adams, Extend Healthcare, AccuReg, Politas, the MBF Group, Armanino, Rash Curtis. Our silver sponsor is nThrive, and our bronze include HRG, Professional Credit, and Sirius. And a special shout out goes to our newest gold sponsor, Buddy AI. Again, thank you for all of your ongoing support. Happy to turn it over to our guest speakers and back to Wendy to introduce.
So hi, everybody. Thank you all for joining the presentation. My name is Wendy Weckbacher. I'm the current president of our Northern California chapter. And I just want to say thanks, Mike, for calling out all of our sponsors. And thank you, everybody, for joining again. I'd like to introduce the two key people that we have here to share a great deal of important information on Valueware. So Dr. Steve Kim, his bio says that he is an obsessed workflow obsessed pediatric urologic surgeon, and actually I've talked with Dr. Kim on a couple of other occasions regarding this same thing, and it is a rightful obsession in the profession that he is in. So with over 20 years of provider experience in California and a passion for process improvement, he's been focused on improving the key patient access workflows, which is important to all of us. How do we get our patients in a more consistent and streamlined way? So Dr. Kim was formerly known as, or formerly as the assistant professor at the University of Southern California. And he currently, he served as the director of clinical research informatics. He co-founded Valueware out of his own personal frustrations with the negative impact that manual prior authorizations and referrals were having on the administrative workflows and on his practice and his patients. So I think we all have experienced that growing pain as well. And thank you and welcome, Dr. Kim. And then also we have Ryan Lawrence. She joined OHSU in April of 2018 as their manager of front-end revenue cycle operations, overseeing the authorization submissions and insurance verification functions. COVID has been, been challenging for everybody, and the organizational prior authorization transformation that Valueware offers has allowed them to come together here to give us what the experience was, what has been offered, and then the benefits that this program can offer all of us. So I'd like to introduce again Dr. Steve Kim and Ryan Lawrence and let them take it from here. Thanks, everybody. Oh, and hang on 1 second before we get kicked off. Just for those of you that joined a little bit late, please make sure if you have any questions and if we have any answers for you, which we will, of course, please put it into the chat, and that's how we will handle all of our Q&A. All of the attendees are muted at this time. Okay, thanks so much, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Wendy and Mike and Ramona and the rest of the team from HFMA Northern California chapter. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us and thank you all for the opportunity to share some of the journey that Ryan, OHSU, and the ValueWare team have been on in terms of moving from manual prior authorization workflows to much more of an automated framework. Go ahead and advance the slide if you would. And just to kind of give you a little bit of the agenda, you can move on to kind of the about us. I'll just say a few remarks about my personal experience. And so as Wendy mentioned, I am a pediatric urologist by training and practice for a number of years in Southern California at a children's hospital, and really co-founded ValueWare out of my own personal frustrations with the impact that manual prior authorization workflows were having, both in terms of patient access delays and denials, as well as the impact that authorizations were having on the downstream revenue cycle. And so a lot of what we learned in my own practices shaped our philosophy and our approach at ValueWare, and that is to really help organizations meet a lot of the practical real-world challenges around manual prior authorization workflows, and doing so by providing workflow integration and automation technology. But I think the important concept that we'd certainly like to discuss here today, and hopefully Ryan can share some of the experiences, is the importance of business partnering with organizations to continuously evolve, innovate, and improve efficiency around these workflows. And so I'm super excited about the having Ryan on the call with us today. As mentioned, Ryan is the front-end revenue cycle operational manager at Oregon Health Sciences. She's been very gracious in providing not only her time, but sharing the journey that we've all been on together over the past year at Oregon Health Sciences around prior authorizations. And to say that it's been a very turbulent and crazy year goes without saying. Ryan's an exceptional patient access leader. We certainly have very much enjoyed working with her, but more importantly, she's also been an incredible business partner that has continuously challenged and pushed us to continuously innovate and evolve to drive some efficiencies from her team. And so we're really thankful for you, Ryan, to be willing to share some of the experiences that we've been on together. And without much further ado, I will turn it over to the star of the show, which is Ryan, and kind of let her hopefully share a little bit about the journey that we've been on together over the past year.
Thank you. And thank you for letting me share today. I do love when he calls me the star of the show. So that's the only reason I agreed to do this. Just kidding. So I want to start definitely saying thank you for the opportunity to present. When I was asked, I was nervous about the idea of presenting to a group that I didn't normally interact with, but I have been assured that you are all super relaxed and this will be great. So I will start my story, but back at where I kind of came in on this situation that we were having at OHSU. So what I will say is when I joined OHSU 3.5 years ago, they were already working to completely overdo or redo our managed care process at that time. And so through that work, we began to really look at our work queues and our work drivers and kind of scope out work that we were doing erroneous touches on that really didn't need our input. And we began to refine our work queues to ensure that everything that was coming into our team members were things that we actually had to touch. We wanted to be as efficient as possible with the small team that we had. And so we did finally get to a point where we're like, all right, well, it seems like we've got some stuff, we've got our stuff dialed in. So now what? What's next? What repetitive manual tasks can we potentially automate? What can we do? And so that kind of launched our adventure into trying to find a partner for automated auth. And so if your office or facility is anything like OHSU, your team really, I'm sure, is struggling with the constant payer changes and portal submissions and requirements and policies. There's so much to try to keep together. So we really wanted to kind of scale it down and say, okay, what is important to us? What is it that we want in a partnership? And so as we began our search for our automated auth partner, some key pieces stood out to us. One, I really wanted to specifically keep our team in our current EHR. So how do I want to find a partner that can integrate with our system. We're currently on Epic. And so can we find a partner that can allow our team to stay within Epic and not have to go out and submit information here to then try to push back information or manually enter information back into our system, because that seemed like touches that we didn't want to have and didn't really help us. And then how do we decrease our touches? So there seemed like there were so many things that as we're doing these authorizations, like it's repetitive. We always have to enter this information. We're always going to have to enter the name, the date of birth, just standard information that it's data entry. So how do we decrease those touches? And then also, is there a better way for us to view what's happening? So, we're working out of these patient work queues, and I can certainly see what we have for things that are needing to be submitted and things that are pending, but what is the time frame? And if any of you work in Epic, you'll know, like, I can't always look at reporting as detailed as I want it to get. How do we get a little more granular? How do we see where things are bottlenecking? Is there an insurance that's causing us more pain than others? Do we need to have somebody help and weigh in on that? And then flexibility was key to be able to customize the tool. I will tell you, we conducted our search for quite some time, and I met with quite a few different vendors, and some had wonderful, beautiful packages and products out there. But the one piece that really kept resonating with us when we were doing our searches, like, these don't necessarily include our local payer mix. As it might be the same for you, I know that in the Pacific Northwest, we have a lot of local payers, and some of those big box vendors were not able to provide the ability to submit to those. And so we really wanted to be able to customize with our vendor for what stood out to us, what makes sense to us. And on top of that, we wanted to make sure that it was a true partnership. So I wanted to have, because I think sometimes I like to be very involved, I wanted to have some input on the design. What does that look like for our team? Does it make sense to train them on this? Is it going to be easy for them to pick this up? Do I have access to the engineers that are going to be putting things in place? Are they looking at our actual process? I didn't want a one size fits all. And so that led us to partner with Steve and his wonderful team to implement the Valor Auto Auth tool. So if we want to move ahead. So I'm just going to talk about kind of our vision and how we got started. And so, as I mentioned just a bit ago, there are so many things that we could look at and say, like, I really want to be able to fix this problem or reduce this or take this out of the process. But as we started our journey, I'll call it, with Valor, it really became collaborative. We wanted to identify that, where are we going to get the biggest bang for the buck? Where can we really automate some of these pieces? And so what the Valor team did is they actually sat side by side with our teams virtually, because this all happened through the pandemic, which was a great time to go live with us. But we had them really see how are our subject matter experts submitting these authorizations. And they were able to identify, wow, these require a lot of touches that seem duplicative and redundant, and you're spending so much time on this repetitive work, doing really kind of some data entry pieces. And so by doing this and collaborating, the engineers were actually able to point out, like, hey, would your team want us to do this? What if we could make this happen? And they were actually able to see some pieces where I didn't know it would be possible for us to automate. So it became this group effort where we were meeting on a constant basis, on a regular cadence, to discuss what could really work. And it was so exciting to have a team that was, I think, just as passionate about the ideas that we were coming up with. And when we would come up with something that seemed a little far-fetched, they were really great at saying, maybe not that right now, but let's put a pin in that. And what I will say is what we've noticed in just the preliminary review of our ROI at this point, we have actually had an increase of about 11% across the groups that we've gotten up on Valor, and we haven't added any staff. And we have been able to stay at the same production or at the same service levels that we expect with the increase and no additional FTE. So for me, that was quite an impact. All right, talking about tactics. I'm going to actually go over, this is my favorite slide, and I've said this as we were kind of working through this. It just kind of gives you a small overview of what the tool is able to do for us. So all of these portals on the right-hand side, this is some of them. There's actually, I think, a few more. But these are all just the portals that we're able to interface with. We're able to send information through the Valor system to submit our authorizations through. But this tool also allows us to utilize or be able to submit fax requests as well. So literally became this one-stop portal for us to do all of these instead of, hey, we got to go to Humana for this. Hey, we've got to go to Evercore for this. Their portal looks very different than this portal. And you just got to remember where you put this information in and this information. So you kind of get an overview of what that takes over for us. And so key things I wanted to point out here on the left-hand side where you see that, OHSU and Epic, what we're doing is we're really taking all the information that our staff would manually enter. So again, some of those basic demographics and some of the, the pieces that we're manually inputting. And we literally hit a button within, or a status within our system, and it fires off this message. And I've learned, I felt like I was being an IT person. I've learned the 278 and 275. So now I feel like I know what I'm talking about. But these are literally just messages that trigger out of our system, and Valor receives all of that. It ingests it and it says, okay, now we're going to submit this information for you to these portals or faxes for you. Does this look good? Then all we have to do is say, yeah, we want to do that. That's great. Get all the information, or maybe let me upload just the last chart note, and then we're good to go. And it submits for us. And for a good portion of these, it actually will auto push back to us. So a message will come back into Epic for us without any manual intervention by our team to say, hey, this is authorized. It changes the status in the system and drops out of our work queue. So it's no longer something that our team even has to touch. So if you think about that, it's saving our team so many touches, not having to go back and check on, not having to manually enter in or screenshot all the information once something is authorized. That's all done for us. So it's eliminating all of that back end work after we've submitted. So if we want to move on to the next slide. So I just wanted to reiterate, these are the top areas of our focus as we went down this journey. So we wanted to make sure that we had one place or one platform to do all of these tasks. So it had the ability to go to multiple portals to handle our faxes, and everything looks standard. So when we're training our staff, new staff coming in, we're like, this is what you do for this payer. This is what you do for this payer. It all looks the same. So that's super exciting. And then we wanted to make sure again that it was able to integrate with our specific EHR. And the one thing that was great about this group is I know they kind of jumped through hoops to be able to make sure that they could work with our Epic, with our instance of Epic and how we're utilizing it. So they did a great job there. And as I mentioned, kind of that visibility, it took multiple reports that I was pulling, and it actually can they've created like a dashboard where I can go in every day and just press on certain buttons to see how we're doing in certain areas. I can have them dig down and get much more granular with the information. Hey, what is our local Medicaid doing? Why are we receiving so many denials here? And then really the submission and verification workflow, it made it able to just make it a standard and take out a lot of that duplicate redundant work, simplify the submission process. So I will speak a little bit to the front part of this, visibility and workflow coordination. So we're currently really utilizing this tool for our submissions and our verification process. So being able to send out a 278 and be able to receive back a 275 message. But some of the other great pieces, as I was saying, can kind of be seen on the back end. We're just starting to get more and more into the weeds with the transparency on the payer behaviors and understanding where we might be able to get our contracting groups involved. Are there things where, we're suffering because certain payers aren't meeting their time, their turnaround times? Are there certain clinics where we need to make sure that they understand that there's going to be delays, or that we're constantly seeing, hey, this visit type is never going to be approved, or we're finding that this kicks back every time, this certain CPT. So it helps us a lot on this front end so far. But I'm going to go ahead and let Steve speak to some of the other ways this has been utilized.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ryan. And once again, it's the importance of connecting what happens on the patient access side and the front end that can be really beneficial downstream on the back end of the revenue cycle. And so some of the areas where, as Ryan mentioned, where we're getting a lot of other clients getting further along the process is really looking at payer behaviors, right? So compliance with turnaround times, what type of approvals are they doing? And then most importantly, kind of around the denials. And this is a personal frustration for me in my own practice is, I think OHSU does a very, very good job of keeping that first pass denial rate fairly low. But for other organizations, there are a lot of opportunities here to connect what sort of denials that are passing through and to really have almost like a feedback mechanism up into the front end of the UI, if you will. And so, one of the parts that we'd love to kind of do is to bring together siloed parts of the revenue cycle and to really even supercharge removing a lot of the errors that can be very costly to manage. And so a large part of this is a workflow coordination tool. And so I think that's something that we're excited about continuing to work with Ryan and the team to further even enhance some of the benefits and efficiencies around authorizations.
Excellent. And so this was an exciting automation that we were able to come up with. So here we're talking about what we call bulk submission. And actually this came about because one of our supervisors was going in and kind of getting a bunch of accounts ready at one time and then pushing them over to Valor and doing his review of them at that point as we were kind of playing around with the tool. And ultimately what happened is we were able to come up with an exciting workflow as we collaborated with the Voluware folks and said, hey, if we get all of these ready, we know that these portals aren't going to have an interactive question, section. Can we just submit these and send them over for them to do their thing? And of course they were like, yeah, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And so ultimately, as it's evolved, we've been able to identify, I think, 4 payers where they don't require question or some interactive questions. And so we have one person each day that will go through and sort our work queue and say, okay, these are all the pairs that we can do bulk submission for. Let me take a half hour, an hour, and get every one of them ready. So they'll go in, they'll check, make sure it's got all the pieces that need to be in there, make sure that it's been triggered to go over to Valor, it sets it in a certain status. And then at the end of the day, Valor comes in and says, okay, all of these in this status, we're going to go ahead and automatically submit those without having anyone check over them again in our system. It's good to go. And so by doing that, we literally can have all of these transition over to Valor. Valor submits them. Ideally, they get worked and they penned or they get authorized. And then the system will push back into Epic and set the status to authorized. So we never see that account again. It's one touch and we don't have to work it again. And I know if you're concerned, like I was at first, well, what about the ones that are going to need additional information, or they bump out and say, you know, it's not, they can't submit it. They actually set those to a specific status. And so our team the next morning comes in and they're able to go in and do whatever additional work is needed on those. So really pretty awesome. It saves us a ton of time. What would have taken us, you know, a few minutes to get ready and submit, a few minutes to go through and verify the authorization, then a few minutes to take all of that information from the approval to enter into Epic. It eliminates pretty much the bulk of that. We get it ready, they submit it, we don't see it again. So that is a super time savings for those specific payers.
And that's something that we certainly get super excited on our end with our team. And this is the exact type of business partnering and collaboration that we get very jazzed about. We certainly have a lot of fun in talking to Ryan and the team about figuring out ways to eliminate those manual touches that are not necessary, right? And so that's, I think, the creative process that has allowed us to really drive a lot of very cool automation and efficiencies for the team. And certainly, I think we're all jointly very proud of bulk submission and some of the other stuff that we've been working on around that.
All right. And so automated pushback into Epic. So this is something I kind of talked a little bit about earlier as I was telling you what the system does for us. But if you're like us, your team is probably spending a lot of time checking back on pendings. Well, I submitted it, it's pending, it's got, you know, they're doing review. And so you might have a regular cadence where your folks are checking things every day, or they're checking every other day. I know depending on when the visit is, you know, we have folks checking daily, maybe even a couple times a day, depending on how close to the visit it comes. So what Valor has done for us is it said, hey, you guys, instead of checking the pendings, why don't we go out and automatically check those pendings for you? And so what was taking my team, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 touches, you know, checking the pendings, Valor actually checks it 3 times a day for us. They'll go in the morning before my team gets here and they'll check for an authorization. Then they'll check again in the afternoon, and then they'll check again late in the afternoon. Like, so we've discussed with them what would work for us. When do we want you to do these, you know, pending checks? And they go out and they automatically do that. And then when they find that it's been authorized, or if it has been denied, or if more information is needed, it actually will push back for us to see that. When it is authorized, this is one of my favorite things. When it is authorized, it actually will put in the auth number. It puts in the expiration dates. It puts in the units. It puts in the CPTs that are approved. And it literally takes a screenshot of what they see on the system. Like I would require my team to do, like if it's not in there, I don't know what it looked like. So it literally takes a screenshot of what the insurance has listed on their website and puts it into our system, our Epic system. So that just like our team would have done, we can always go back and say, oh, well, here is what it looked like when it approved. And these are the CPTs that it approved. And so if you think about that, we're saying it's an average of 6.5 minutes that we're saving because of all of the times that the team would have to log into that system and run down and put the referral number in and see, like, where is it? Is it authorized yet? And then have to manually enter all of the information that the insurance has on that website. So you think about the data entry that our team was spending time doing, this eliminates it. And so I really love that, the auto pushback. And then if we're not able to automatically push back, you know, if the system doesn't do it for us, it's still, it's a pretty slick tool where if we're doing the auth check for some reason and we find some information, we're able to just press a button within Valor and it will send over whatever notes we've created in Valor into that specific referral. So again, just kind of automating those additional keystrokes that we don't have to do. All right, next we're going to talk about SAM. And it took us a while actually to come up with a name. We had, I think, a few different things going for a while. But SAM is the Submission Automation Manager. And this is truly a fun collaboration. This is multitasking at its finest. So the way that SAM came about, this is our new adventure, by the way. It's very new. But the way that SAM came about is that actually our team members, as they're submitting authorizations and they're working through the interactive questions that come up, sometimes as you're working through them, there's a delay, information goes over, you're waiting for that next one to come up. They said, this is kind of like downtime. And I was like, well, what do you mean you have downtime? Nobody should have downtime. You have so much to do. And they said, well, in between those questions, or in between waiting for something to come back, or in between setting something up, can we submit more? Can we submit another one? Can we have a few going? Can we do a few different sites? Which of course I was like, yes, this is so exciting. Let's talk about it. And so we of course went to Steve and team, and they were like, let's try it. And so we really truly collaborated on this and co-developed SAM. Like, we were able to have our subject matter experts sit in and give input on what it would look like. And so with SAM, what it does is there's this banner at the top of the tool, and it will have multiple tabs across it. And as things are progressing, you submit something, and as they progress, you can move on, and the tool will notify you. It'll actually turn color and notify you that you have to do something. It'll tell you, you have a question waiting. This has been approved. It literally is just kind of a signaling system across the top, but you can have, a bunch of different things going at one time. Instead of waiting for these questions, you're in your next step, you're just moving along and you're constantly working on something. I will say, our team got super excited about the idea of being involved in the process of creating this. So they had a lot of ownership on it, and we just launched it, like I said, in July. So we've been meeting to provide feedback, and as we do, they make quick adjustments, and they're like, what about this? How does this work? And so we're currently starting to do some data collection on the process and be able to, report out on it. But the team is really enjoying the ability to do more in the same amount of time.
Yeah, and just to kind of follow up on that, it's I think indicative of the way that we like to operate as business partners with the teams that we work with, like Ryan and our OHSU team, is that one of the things that we know very well from my own practice where we started is that, people have to work a certain way and they like to work a certain way. And our job is to really make that automations where really kind of take off, where they can save time. And so when we found out that Ryan's team were natural multitaskers, where they were running multiple things in parallel, the question very quickly came up around, especially around those websites like AIM and IAVA Core, Ability, et cetera, where they're the clinical dynamic questions. Let's eliminate all the other downtime that she talks about and just really focus the users on what they should be, which is answering some of the clinical questions and attestations that are responsible. So to Ryan's point, I think when we first started out with this, we had multiple tabs, and we started out with, I think, 3 tabs, just kind of to make sure that, this would work. And I think very quickly this became, we want 10 tabs. And so we're really excited about the process here about being able to multitask and parallelize activities to really even further unlock efficiencies around how people work and addressing some of the constraints that are put on us by the insurance payers and the portals themselves. This is the type of stuff that our team really enjoys and loves working, and we talked about kind of this business partnership. So we're extremely excited about SAM. The OHSU team and Ryan's also had, like I said, a participation in coming up with a name. But I think this is the constant iterative process that is, I think, the important concept that, and how we work and kind of the approach with working with Ryan and the team.
I will say they gave us 10 tabs. And of course, I think I have like one person that's like, yeah, I'm going to use all 10. But, it was exciting to know that we can, we have that ability to work through and have 10 different things potentially going at one time.
Yeah, and I think one of the lessons I learned early on was it's sometimes very difficult to say that you're going to do a turnkey approach, right? So you're really understanding how people work and then taking that feedback and I think one of the things that we didn't talk about is just, how quickly the turnaround was on the whole development cycle with the SAM project. It was literally conceived of fairly quickly, and I think within a month or two, kind of had the first iterations in front of the team. And it's this process of continuous feedback that we certainly enjoy, and we're continuously updating with that. And so, really, stressing the importance of business partnering and on that. And we're super excited about what SAM will continue to develop into over time.
Okay, so key benefits. So as I said, we have, from where we started, I think, we finally implemented, I believe, last July. And so we've been on this constant rolling out to different teams and kind of trying to track how are we doing here. So we have started to see some improved productivity. We've pulled some kind of preliminary numbers and looked at like, how are we doing on this team? How are we doing as a whole? Where are we seeing the, the biggest productivity increase? So we've seen that certainly in our work queues. One, I will say, diagnostics is a huge player in this, since pretty much all of our advanced imaging tests require authorization. That team has been our guinea pig for everything. Like, let's try this, since you're going to have to submit everything anyway. So we've really kind of been able to track our staff's productivity and kind of seeing how they're doing as a whole. And as I said, we continue to roll this out to our different subspecialties. And the reason for that is really, instead of a big bang, one, we want to make sure we're getting it right and that the team is comfortable and able to work through those little things and seeing where there might need to be changes. But two, each subspecialty has little nuances to it. And of course, we make jokes and call it special snowflakes, but the fact is every specialty does have something that you need to take into consideration. And so each time we roll it out, we make sure that we're meeting with the engineers and going over like, okay, this one, do we need to include the patient's weight? Can we pull that in? What does a unit mean to this group? We found, in some of these, a unit is a visit, and others, a unit is the medication that they're getting for infusion, or the Botox that they're getting, or certain, this might be the tracer. So we had to make sure that we're manipulating that specific group's work to accommodate what they need to push over to the insurances. And so we've rolled it out kind of over time. And so we're still at that point where we're pretty, we've got most of our teams on it, but we continue to see, okay, well, we're bringing this team on. We need to make sure we're up to speed on that. And then we're at the point where we're really creating these robust reports. And so we've started meeting on a weekly cadence to say, okay, well, what data is important to me? What is it that OHSU wants to see? How do we validate and really show what work is being done? And it needs to be real-time data. So how can I make sure each day, okay, this is what we've got in the hopper. This is what's going in the queue. This is what we have pending. This is what we've gotten for denials. So really building out and customizing those reports. So that's kind of where we've come since July, kind of those last July, some of those pieces. But on a daily basis, it's helping us to really see, what is our payer behavior? So are these taking, instead of, 14 days, are these taking 30? We did find one of our CCOs was taking an extremely long time around the holidays last year. And so that helps us to then have a conversation with our clinics and make sure that they understand the high liability with scheduling those patients within a certain time frame. And so we were able to do that. And then also just eliminating, again, back to, the total package, just eliminating our redundancies and ensuring that we're utilizing accurate data, accurate information is being not only, entered in submitting the authorization, because we all know how it is. If you transpose a letter, you're going to be there for a while, but also making sure that we have accurate reporting. The tool is really helping to take the guesswork out of like, okay, what's happening with this, with this insurance, really what is our average wait time between submission and return? What is our average time that it takes us to submit an authorization? Again, how often is this CPT being denied? How often does this require that it go to a medical review? Do we need to provide something up front? Does it need to have a letter up front? So those type of things that just this tool is helping us to identify and manage across the group. I think we can move on. What's next? So I think this kind of brings us back to the very beginning of the conversation where I said, okay, we've now done everything we can at this state. What's next? What else can we do to try to move our team forward? Ideal state, and this is something that I was very transparent with Steve and team about in the very beginning. My ideal state where we would be in the future would be that our team is really working in an exception-based model where we're not touching all of these things that we know are going to get authorized. We're not touching these things that don't require us to really be an advocate for the patient. So in my ideal world, once a referral is placed or an order is put in the system or an appointment is scheduled, it will automatically go over to Valor without manual intervention from my team. And then it will submit with whatever information that it was able to pull out of our system. And our team will only see it if it denies, it pends for some specific reason, there's additional information that's needed. Really, again, so that our team is working on being more of an advocate for our patients on our patients' behalf rather than spending time doing data entry. And so with that, the idea is not to, because I know some folks have been like, do you eventually, foresee this being all automated and not having team members? And no, my thought is that this really allows us to do more with the same staff that we have. And again, if any of you are following, I know that there's a lot around price transparency and really trying to make sure that we're interacting with our patients and making sure that they understand what their care is going to potentially cost them. And I think it starts with ensuring that we have an authorization, that they understand if they're in or out of network, but all of that can be, I think we can spend more time if we get to a near touchless future. And so I think we're headed that way with every little automation that we are able to implement. Everything that, the Valor team is like, yes, let's take that on. Yes, let's do that for you. I think we get closer and closer and closer to where we're in that exception-based model.
And just to kind of touch on that, that's our same philosophy and experience, is that these things don't magically happen overnight. This is a continuous work in progress. And the good thing is that, as things evolve, that there's more and more opportunities to drive automation and to really kind of unlock, team members to do what's more patient facing and more value added, rather than, as Ryan said, the frustrating part of manually entering in data back and forth between systems and web portals and fax forms. And so we're super excited. I think we've developed quite a nice working relationship with Ryan and the OHG team and their IT team. And, that's how we approach it. And we're super excited about this continuous evolvement and innovation that we're working with them. And I don't hear another slide.
I think
So
that is all of it.
thank you so much, Ryan. That was amazing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say thank you for letting me share. If I know I'm a fast talker, so I apologize if there was anything that wasn't clear. It's hard to take a couple of years worth of work and try to put it into a few slides for a quick meeting. But what I will say, really the whole point of this is finding the right vendor that fits with what your team needs. That's the most important thing I think that we learned from this collaboration versus some of our other collaborations that we've had, with different areas. It is like a breath of fresh air to be able to know who you can go to get something done, to get it moving. And it happens extremely quickly. And I've said this to Steve and his team before. I joke and I'm like, I'm pretty sure we're their only client, because I know we send so much over and we ask for so much, and they just quickly respond every time. And I know that, you know, if I send something over, one of his team, I know who's going to respond. And so I think that says a lot to what we're able to do.
Yeah, and you know, maybe that comes from my background as being a pediatric surgeon, which with little patience and my own frustrations with vendors during my period of time working at institutions. But it's a very important concept that things are constantly evolving and changing as it comes to prior authorization workflows. Many of us know that the payers are constantly evolving and changing their requirements. We know that teams are changing the configuration of the workflows that are happening. And one of the things I certainly saw in my own practice in my institution was the need to be able to rapidly adapt and continuously improve. And so that's always a hallmark. But you know, obviously having the right business partners such as Ryan and the OHSU team to make sure that they're continuously pushing us is something that, you know, we love and enjoy and thrive on. And so we're super excited about this collaboration and moving from what was otherwise manual processes into kind of the progress towards working towards automation. What we know it can be is an exciting journey for us as a company, and certainly working with Ryan and team has been an absolute pleasure for our team as well. So with that, I think maybe we'll turn it over to the questions and answers, if that works for you, Ryan. I don't know if there's anything further that you had that you wanted to add.
Nope, I'm happy to answer whatever questions I'm able to.
Thanks all. There have been a few questions that have come in. Thanks Ron and Felicia for posting. The first question is, does the platform work with MS4 as an information system? Does anybody happen to know?
I don't think we've previously worked with MS4, but I think one of the things that we certainly pride ourselves on as an organization is that we've built a lot of flexible integration and configurations with a wide variety of different EHR and practice management systems. We're pretty resourceful about utilizing what is available by specific vendors in terms of what they can make available. And what we do is we take that to drive automation where we can on our end. So, but certainly would be happy to have an offline discussion if anyone wants to contact and would like to learn more about MS4.
And that's sort of a great transition. Felicia had asked if an organization would like to get in touch with you to explore options and usage. What's the best way to do that?
I think certainly I can share my email and circulate it. It's quite simply steve@voluware.com, and we can certainly circulate that, and people can feel free to go ahead and reach out to me directly, and we'll set up some conversations.
And likewise, if you have questions about how we were able to work with Steve and team, we've had conversations with others. I have no problem being very transparent about what we've done and what's worked and what we could do better.
Ryan, appreciate that.
Thanks, team. We'll open up the floor to any other questions, comments. We hope everyone found the content valuable, timely, interesting. I certainly did. We'll make the presentation available to everybody through the new and improved Northern California HFMA chapter's website. We'll send a link out. We'll post the presentation material. Please, 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 we implore you to complete a survey that we'll utilize for forming future topics of interest. That will be sent out immediately to registrants. Yes, Felicia Z, available to everyone, all members, not just those who registered for today. And thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ryan, Steve, and the VoluWare team for hosting and sharing all the really interesting information and process. If there are no further questions, we'll shut down and share as best we can, and hope to see everyone very soon.
And I'd certainly just like to thank Ryan for graciously sharing her time and sharing her experiences with everybody, and to the entire Northern California HFMA chapter for allowing us to share the journey that we've all been on, and to everybody who's made time out of their busy day to listen in. And please do not hesitate to go ahead and reach out with any additional questions, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you, Ryan.
Thank you. Bye.